Hey guys, it's Jenna coming to you with a video talking about a little bit more about financing, pre-approval, why it's important at this process to go ahead and get that taken care of. So if you are receiving this video, you are already a buyer who has expressed interest to me in purchasing a new home, and you may or may not be approved for financing at this moment in time. And so one of the things that is very important, even early on in the process, is that you go ahead and talk to a lender and get pre-approved for a home. And there's a few reasons why. Number one, the market is such to where you will not be able to put in an offer until you have a pre-approval letter from a lender. And you definitely want to make sure you have that before you start looking, because if you do find a house that is on that market and you want to go ahead and put an offer on it and it's a weekend and maybe you can't get a hold of the lender right away, you want to make sure that you already have that there and it's available, so when you submit an offer you have it ready. But more so than anything, the reason that a pre-approval letter is very, very important is you need to understand from the very beginning what your budget actually is. Now, there's a lot of budgeting calculators on the internet right now where you can decide how much mortgage you can qualify for by putting in certain random numbers and figuring out what your budget is. That's fine. The issue is going to be, what are you actually going to be approved for? So even though I know that maybe you might be able to afford a $1,900 a month mortgage payment because you know what your budget looks like, the lender and their requirements might not allow you to have a loan that is that high. And there's different things that go into how much you get approved for and for what type of loan you might get approved for. So we have to know that from the beginning, and because we don't want you to be looking at houses in the $350,000 range if you can afford, if all you really realistically can get approved for is $250,000. Not only is it a waste of your time and a waste of my time, but it sets you up to be disappointed from the very beginning. So we want to make sure that we're being realistic about the numbers. So there's various types of financing, and you either will get approved for a conventional loan, an FHA loan, or if you're a veteran and you are in the armed forces, you can qualify for a VA, which is Veteran Assistance Loan. If you are a first-time home buyer, generally FHA is going to be what you're going to be qualified for. It's a government-backed loan that is insured by the United States government. The down payment requirements for that are a little bit lower, so it kind of helps first-time home buyers get into a house. If you've owned a home before or your credit score is really, really high, a conventional loan might be the next best thing. Conventional loans require a little bit more of a down payment, but when you've had a house or you're selling a house and you have equity in a house, generally you can afford to put a little bit more down. Depending on, the interest rates between the two vary depending on what the government has at that moment in time. But again, these are all things that why it's very important to speak with the lender before we start the process. The other part of getting a pre-approval is it's going to show you how much money you're actually going to need to close. And that's another part of the process that's very important. If you have not saved up enough money for your down payment plus for your closing costs, it could be very difficult to actually be able to buy a house. So we need to know, I need to know as your real estate agent, do we need to ask for money and closing costs from the seller? Are you going to need help whenever it comes to, yeah, you have the 3.5% down payment, but maybe, or 3.5% down payment, but you don't have the full amount of the closing costs. These are all things that we need to know. And when you talk to a lender, they're going to give you all of that information from the very beginning. But we also need to know what type of financing you're going to qualify for, because that will affect the type of house that we need to look for. For example, if you are getting a Veterans Assistance Loan, there are certain requirements that the government says a certain type of condition the house needs to be in. And some of the houses that are on the market don't qualify for Veterans Assistance Program. The loan program. Maybe they need a new roof. Maybe the foundation is really bad and the seller's not willing to actually do any of those large repairs. So that would be a house that you couldn't even really go for in the first place. That's going to affect where we go, how we look, you know, what kind of houses we look for. So if you need help getting your pre-approval, I do have lenders that I work with and can refer those over. I'm actually going to put those in the email that this comes out at. Please talk to them, find the one that works best for you. All of these are people I've worked with before, and they are people that I trust completely with the purchase of your home. And once we get that going, we have the number that we're ready, we can start actually looking for some houses. Okay, happy mortgage hunting.